You're listening to Generation AI
from LivePerson.
Hello, Generation AI listeners. Welcome back for another great episode with yet another incredible guest. I am your host, Ruth Zive, and at the risk of sounding a little bit like a broken record, I'm going to kick it off by reminding all of you to please hit that subscribe button. Pretty please leave us a 5-star rating with your feedback on your favorite podcast app. I actually neurotically check all of this feedback and the comments because I'm a bit of a people pleaser. So just know that it is much appreciated when you take the time to do that. So today our guest is Natalie Romano, a longtime leader at Avaya. And Natalie currently serves as the company's portfolio maximization global sales leader. Now, I've become pretty familiar with the great work that Avaya has been doing over the last several months, and I'm really excited to talk to Natalie about how she is really working with top enterprises to navigate their CX transformation in order to drive better business results. So without further ado, welcome to Generation AI, Natalie.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
We're excited to have you. Let's jump right in and get to it. I suspect that our listeners would love just a little bit more context on your background. I believe you've actually had more than 20 years of experience working with brands to drive successful outcomes in the contact center. I'd love you to share a little bit more about your career journey and what landed you at Avaya and what your role is there today with a bit more detail. But then I always ask our guests from the outset, because we care a great deal about AI on this podcast, to talk a bit about how AI came into play within the context of your career and when you really realized that it was going to have a massive impact on the customer experience and particularly within the contact center.
Okay, great. So I started a long time ago, over 20 years experience working with different brands, different customers. And I have a very unique perspective because when I started out in this industry, it was, it was just doing some clerical activity for a friend of mine. And then I ended up getting hired on and it just kind of moved from there. So I've been able to see all sides of the aspect of a customer experience, both being a customer, being on the side that's servicing the customer, seeing it from a sales perspective, a delivery perspective. I've actually configured and programmed our solutions. And then I've also been a consultant for many years. And I think the best part of my journey really was the consulting part of it. I got to meet some really great brands. I got to really see these customers and understand their business. And that was always my number one goal. So I think that brings a fresh perspective and it allows you to consider those perspectives where they failed, where they've succeeded, how they're using not only technology, but their business processes and their organization to do better than what they are today.
Sure. And so now you're on the sales side of the house. Maybe with that in mind, share a little bit about your perspective on AI. Do you have an aha moment where you just knew that this was going to be a game changer? And, what are your sort of overarching thoughts to that extent, to that end?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if I have a moment that said, oh, wow, this is really something we need to pay attention to. I think we had always had our eye on it. I think now I'm always thinking to myself, what's next? What's the next what's coming? But it's really interesting the way it has changed the way customers are doing business and the way they are both resistant and embracive of the trends. So it's been interesting to understand perspectives. And I think that it's not going away, obviously. It's only going to get better. We do need to embrace it. And I would say, if you go into it with your, both eyes wide open, it's not going to do the harm that some people think that it may be doing.
So Natalie, you mentioned that you've actually been on all sides of the contact center. You've got a good 360-degree view of the customer, not just from your experience at Avaya, but you bring that perspective from other roles that you've had in other companies. I'd love to, all of this, including AI, ultimately comes back to the customer experience and delivering what the customer wants and expects of you. I'd love to hear a little bit about what you think really distinguishes a good customer experience from a great customer experience.
I think it's all relative to the individual and, what their perspective is. I think for the most part, the difference is how I feel when I walk away from the transaction or an interaction with the company. If I feel like I got what I needed done and did so in a timely manner and they met all of my needs, that's great. That's a good experience. If I walk away thinking, wow, I'm going to go and tell my best friend about this company because it's pretty amazing how they just handled it.
I think you're making a good point. It really sounds like there's this distinction between doing what the customer expects versus elevating the experience to something that is extraordinary, which isn't always necessary.
Exactly. Just walking away, feeling good about it and feeling like I got my interaction handled is sufficient for most. But walking away and really feeling good about it and improve, thinking about that brand when I'm having conversations with my friends or my colleagues, that raises it to a great experience because then you stood out in my mind. And I think that's what companies should aim for. Yeah.
So it's almost like there's this baseline where you want to deliver to the customer what they need. And then there's this next level aspirational goal around the customer experience, which is how do you win the hearts and minds of your customers such that they really become, evangelists and outspoken fans about what it is that you're providing. And that is the distinction, it sounds like, between good and great.
For me, it is for sure.
I like that. I like that. And I think that to your original point, that's very dependent. It's dependent on the customer. It's dependent on what you're selling. It's dependent on the nature of the problem that they're having in that moment. It's perhaps dependent on their lifetime value. Like there are a lot of variables that might inform the brand on whether or not they want to make the investment to aspire to that great experience. It may not always be warranted in every case.
I think it's definitely relative to the vertical you're working, right? Some are a little bit easier to manage than others. But I think that it's acceptable for any of us, any consumer, any business to want to contact another company, an organization they're doing business with and get their answers. So I think that should be your baseline. And from there, everything else I think is gravy.
I think, Natalie, there's an interesting follow-on question. You're touching on something super important here. And I think relative to AI, there's an opportunity to leverage this technology to really help brands best understand how they can deliver the right outcome to the right customer at the right time. What are your thoughts along those lines? Do you see brands leaning into AI to that end? How do you feel about that opportunity?
So I think that there's huge opportunity there. I am seeing brands lean in. I also see some cautionary, takes on getting into it and leveraging that. There's always a fear of, is it going to take away my job? Is it going to take away, resources? And I try and help customers understand that it's not taking anything away. It's actually enhancing what you have today, right? It's taking the information that's at your fingertips and allowing you to really adopt that information and make real-time decisions that are going to meet the needs of your business and your customers. And once they get over that, I think everybody seems to be embracive of it. They don't know where to start. So, start small, start internal if you're concerned. So I think I would start small and really focus on what would you want as a consumer? What would you want as a business that can make your life easier and your interaction better? And if you start from that perspective, I think we've had much success. We've also had some failures as well. There's always a learning curve there. My daughter is 14 and she had a homework assignment the other day and she texted me. She's like, I need to download ChatGPT. And I'm like, what? And I'm thinking immediately, no, because you should have learned, you should have listened in class. You should have done that. And then I thought about it. I thought, one, I've done her homework with her before and I can't do it, but two, leveraging that tool to help educate her and give her the information to answer those questions and learn from it. That's pretty powerful. And I think that you just have to take a step back and go, maybe it will work. So
I think, there's almost a democratization impact, that it's leveling the playing field in terms of access to information. I had the very similar discussion with my son who's in college and also was quick to download ChatGPT to get all of his papers done. But do you find, like, on the agent side, because you touched on this anxiety that it's going to take away your job, that AI is going to replace you, and certainly at LivePerson we sell AI agents that are very tailor-made automations around specific use cases. But our point of view is that that's going to allow your human agents to level up and really be more specialized and available in those moments where it matters most. Are you finding on the agent side that once they get their hands on it, once they realize those efficiency gains, that there's more willingness and appetite and that those fears are eased to some extent?
Absolutely. Just in watching the progress of them adopting AI and then seeing how it improves, for the most part, agents have all these sticky notes. They have all of this stuff all over, but having the ability to take that off and having an address or something that is a simple task taken off of their plate so they can manage the things they want to handle the interactions that are important to them, that they find fun, that if they're upselling, they have all of the information at their fingertips and they're not having to, have a call in between that's, hey, do I know the address of the company, or can you give me directions somewhere? It's really allowing them to spend more time where they want to spend their time and develop their skills, because they truly do want to improve and grow. And I think that some of the mundane tasks they have of the day to day get in the way. So it's been interesting to watch that blossom coming with our agents.
I think that's, the low hanging fruit opportunity is that agents can stop having to read off of scripts and sound like robots. They can actually have a much more interesting job because all of those robotic tasks and repetitive inquiries can be automated. So I agree with you. Let's shift gears just a little bit. I've heard you say that great CX plus great EX equals business growth. And I think that's like a great formula, a fascinating formula. Tell us a little bit more about your thinking along those lines. What does it mean? And then it would be great if you could share a real life example of how this comes into play.
Great. Yes. So CX plus EX equals BG is our Avaya approach to customer experience. So the baseline is with customer experience. If you have a great customer experience, your employees are going to be much happier. And when they're happy employees, they're servicing them better, which naturally will get you to a business growth. The more you do better, the more people want to do business with you. So that's really the concept around the CX plus EX equals BG. And I have seen it in action. We've seen quite a few. So we had a recent healthcare customer. They handle medical claims and scheduling for multiple customers, and they have these agents. They were trying to find proper talent for them. They were getting them. They were so Indian. They were doing so much admin work and so much work that was more around making sure that they had the information documented and having to search for information. Their calls were extremely long. We implemented Gen AI, allowed the simple tasks to be handled automatically. And then they were dealing with more of the ones they wanted to. And they would hear a customer or a patient rather that was super excited about getting the appointment made and showed their appreciation and that their results. And so it was really nice to see that. But what was really important was on the agent side. It said, I don't want to get griped at anymore about, I can't find the information, or it's taking too long, or I'm sorry, you're going to get disconnected. Can you hurry up? Having that information happen in real time before it even got to the agents was really powerful for them. And that in the noise cancellation, they love the noise cancellation, having the noise around them quieted so they can spend more time focused on the transaction and not what Susie is doing behind them.
For sure. I love your example of that healthcare brand, because I can only imagine that for an agent, knowing that the support that they're providing is actually having a meaningful impact versus doing mundane, repetitive tasks that are super annoying and frustrating both to the agent and the customer. The distinction between those two employee experiences is meaningful. A lifetime ago, I actually used to work in nonprofit management, and we used to run these sort of fundraising telethons. And our slogan for all of the callers used to be, a smile can be heard. This idea that, your demeanor on the phone matters when you're having a discussion with a customer or a prospect. But it's hard to contrive that smile. If it's actually authentic because you're having a great employee experience, that's going to translate into a much better customer experience. So I love the formula. It makes a lot of sense to me. I want to just touch on for a moment the LivePerson and Avaya partnership, just because selfishly I'm invested in that partnership. I think we're working together to really ensure that large enterprises in particular are getting the most out of their voice and digital experiences, really bringing those two worlds together in service of a bigger transformation mandate. We know that consumers want their experiences with brands, their conversations with brands to be very connected and personalized. We all hate as consumers when we call up and we're asked to repeat ourselves 4,000 times. So when you think about this partnership, I'd love to hear your perspective on why you think this matters to the brands, but also to the consumers.
I think there's a couple things. Well, first, name recognition is huge. We have some of the largest customers of ours in common. And how do we bring that experience back to them? You had one piece, we had another. How do we bring it all together and allow us to service them together? And they can, from a more holistic approach. So I think from that perspective, being able to work together and our customers being able to see that we're working together, and it just allows us to demonstrate the ecosystem that we are building is of value to all customers. It's not a one or the other. It's all together. I think that is really important. Outside of that, I mean, again, LivePerson has been on our radar for quite some time. The digital aspect, as well as my favorite one is the analytics studio. I think that just brings a level of expertise on top of a voice or a typical voice transaction to ours. So I like bringing the solution together. And I think there's value to be had both for the customers we have that are in common, as well as those that we're going after and pursuing separately and together. So that's how I feel that it's been best served. Now, I will say my level of, I would say impressiveness, but I'm not sure that's the right word, but I've been truly impressed by the level of professionalism and just mere customer focus of LivePerson on our calls and on customer meetings. And I'm just, wow, they're in it to win it. So it was really interesting just to see that perspective. So going in together and partnering with you, it's been great. Great. And seeing your team is wonderful.
Music to my ears. The feelings are very mutual. I will say one other thing that we're hearing over and over again from brands, which is that, there's this mandate to bring voice into the digital fold, to digitally transform across the business. And it's a really daunting proposition, even though the mandate exists. It's often expensive. It can take years to accommodate. Brands don't know where to start, frankly. And there's a real reluctance to rip and replace vendors they've worked with for years that they really appreciate and love. And I think this partnership is allowing brands to see that they don't have to make additional multi-million-dollar investments or sign up for, a multi-year cloud migration, for instance, in order to facilitate a very thoughtful, strategic, measurable digital transformation initiative. I think, together we can help brands to do that much, much faster than they would have been able to do otherwise. So that's what's exciting to me, because time to value is so, so important, especially in this world where resources are constrained. And knowing how and when to implement AI in service of a great customer experience, I think we both bring that expertise for the contact center. So I'm excited. I feel like we're just starting on this journey together, and I know we're all very delighted to be running this partnership together. So this brings us to our much loved Hype It or Hate It segment. Our producer, John, is going to put 60 seconds on the clock, and each of us is going to do a little bit of a rant. The rules are that we can be positive or negative about something in the world of AI or business or technology. We only have 60 seconds to explain what we're all heated about or what we're loving. So hopefully you're ready, Natalie.
I'm going to be when it's my turn.
Perfect.
Okay, so we're going to start with Ruth, and I will put 60 seconds on the clock. Ruth, I will let you know when you have 30 seconds left, when you have 10 seconds left, and then a buzzer will sound when your time is up, and then Natalie will have a chance to respond. So, Ruth, are you ready?
Yes, I think I'm ready.
Okay, fantastic. So your time starts now.
Okay, today I'm going to hate on email subscriptions. This is going to be a little bit of a catharsis. I do think that the world of email subscription has improved in some ways since all of these anti-spam laws have been introduced, but somehow I still find myself on more email lists than I can handle. I can't stay on top of those subscriptions. So every month or so, I try to make a point of unsubscribing from these lists. And I just want to say, in fairness, most of the time I'm on the list. I'm on the list legitimately because I've purchased something, so I'm not, ranting on the fact that I'm on the list in the first place. What I'm ranting on is how hard it is to unsubscribe. That little link is hidden in the footer of the email. You click on it, and then there are a million different dots to click, and you have no idea how to unsubscribe. It's near impossible. And I actually really think that if brands made it easier to unsubscribe from these email lists, we might be more amenable to resubscribing in the future. But as it is a very infuriating process, unsubscribing from these lists.
I couldn't agree with you more, by the way. I do. And since you went to an email, I'm going to actually go to having calendars and meeting invites and not using AI to help you organize those meetings a little bit better. So I'm booked right now at this time. I have 3 different meetings going on at the same time. So I would like for people really to look at calendars and ensure that people have the availability. And if they don't, make sure that they are before you send that meeting invite. But it doesn't take that long to just use AI and say, find the next time that somebody is available to attend a meeting with you, as well as sending out the meeting notes afterwards. But instead, I get multiple email requests or meeting requests, and then 5 or 6 different messages and IMs, and just pick a communication channel that you want to communicate with me with, and that's the one I will answer to. And just look at people's calendars or use AI in your Outlook.
All right, fantastic. Ruth, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think between both of our hates today, Natalie, we've covered email and calendaring. Both those things take up way too much of my time on a day-to-day basis. And my hope for the future would be that AI solves these problems for us so that we don't have to hate on email or calendar burdens in the future. That's my hope and expectation. Probably in the near term, these things will all be automated. So, Natalie, this was truly a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your perspective and your insights. Tell our listeners where they can find you and where they can learn more about Avaya.
Oh, yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Natalie Romano, Orange or Avaya. Link to our main page, and it's Natalie R011.
And to those of our listeners who are interested in learning more about me, you can also find me hyping and hating on LinkedIn. Be sure to subscribe to Generation AI where you get your podcasts so that you don't miss out on our lineup of AI experts this season. It's a very exciting lineup. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Natalie. Until next time.
You've been listening to Generation AI,
Automating Better Business,
a show from LivePerson.
Never miss an episode by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. Please give us a rating, leave a comment, and share the episodes you love. Until next time.